Never a dull moment. Another huge day here on the Trish Regan Show as we get news of another indictment, a major indictment, a deep state op. Now possibly paying the price. John Bolton, everyone, former head of the NSC, is being indicted by Pam Bondi over at the DOJ. Wow. Okay, the president, he just found out himself. This is minutes ago at the White House.
I didn't know that. You told me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but.
Wow. So he just found out. We just found out. We actually just had to rejigger the show order because of this breaking news. It's a huge deal. We're going to be all over this. We have a lot to say. I have a lot to say. Look, it is what it is, right? You can't make off with classified documents. You can't send it to your book publisher if that's in fact what happened. It seems to be, I have a theory. Meanwhile, this whole Arctic frost thing is getting worse and worse and worse. And Kash just revealed a whole bunch of stuff. The president is livid. 30 million phone records that they were trying to gather metadata information on. Watch.
I think it was the worst weaponization of a political opponent in the history of the world, let alone this country.
Yeah, you think? We got a lot to say on that. And Letitia James, sorry, bye-bye. You know what? If you don't actually get forced to resign because you might wind up in jail, your party wants you out. Your own party wants you out. Oh, and by the way, the Republicans are running someone against you. We're going to talk about that, plus the whole harboring of a criminal thing. And guess who's here today? We got Eric Trump. Oh, isn't this big news? His book, guess what? Under Siege. It is #1 on all the charts. We're going to talk about all that he and his dad and his entire family went through. And not just the family, the country, ladies and gentlemen, the country. You went through it. I went through it. We know what he was up against. Welcome to the show, everyone. Great to have you here. We are number 66 and still counting on the YouTube list of top podcasts. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, hit the bell so you know exactly when I'm live every single day. We begin on the breaking news here, just coming to us out of the DOJ, the Maryland office there, indicting one John Bolton. This had been somewhat expected. It was telegraphed to the likes of MSNBC last week. Don't forget, John Bolton's attorney, I do believe he went with the same attorney that Letitia James has. The same attorney, Abby Lowell, that also Hunter Biden had. So, kind of an incestuous little community. They have their friends over at MSNBC. So MSNBC was the first to report this, perhaps just yesterday afternoon, or even as early as last Friday, that this would be coming down. I want to go straight to the White House, the president reacting to the news in real time.
John Bolton was just indicted by a grand jury in Maryland. Do you have a reaction to that?
I didn't know that. You told me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes.
The case against him?
That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes. Will I what?
Have you reviewed the case against him?
No, I haven't. But I just think he's a bad person. Okay.
Yeah, he does think that. He actually didn't like Bolton very much at all because Bolton's sort of go-to move was always to use force. And that's never Donald Trump's go-to move. Donald Trump's go-to move is to actually do some thoughtful things like, hey, tariffs. Okay, tariffs. We have a lot of financial power. Let's go ahead and use it. He's a businessman. John Bolton is not. John Bolton is much more interested in a use of force. I've actually had this debate before, live on air with Bolton. I was once after him saying, well, hey, look, why wouldn't you rather lose dollars than lives? Can't you find a more strategic way to do some of these things? And he was like, hey, you go tell your friend Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan about that and see how he reacts. And I'm like, I'm sorry, when did JP Morgan CEO control the country? I don't think we need to ask JP Morgan's permission for anything. I think the decision should be made by the President of the United States. And in the case of one Donald Trump, he's making decisions that he feels are best for our economy and for our people, and thus sparing the lives, hopefully, of as many Americans. And by the way, people all around the world, here is MSNBC defending, of course, this is priceless, you guys. They are defending John Bolton and saying, well, he doesn't really deserve this. Mind you, the whole investigation was started under the Biden administration. So he was already being looked into. Maybe he acquiesced and he played ball with them, and so they were willing to let it go. Well, it is resurfaced under Donald Trump because the allegation is that he was taking classified materials and apparently emailing it. Oh, you know how they knew this? Because another country, a foreign actor, probably the Iranians, but I don't know, a foreign actor actually got access to this information, and they're like, whoa, how did that happen? Oh, well, John was emailing it around, maybe trying to score his next book deal. Here we go. This is MSNBC pleading the case, as only they can, for one Mr. John Bolton.
So we've got us this grand jury, Ken, meeting this hour, about 30 minutes from now or so, all to consider the evidence here against John Bolton. What are the potential charges? What kind of evidence are they working with?
Alex, the potential charges include charges of mishandling classified information under the Espionage Act, and those are charges that carry a penalty of up to 10 years in prison. So this is a very serious case, and they would have to prove that John Bolton willfully kept classified information in a place it wasn't supposed to be. Now, of course, this investigation was generated via a referral by the CIA, and it actually originated during the Biden administration. And we know that there was a foreign government hack of John Bolton's AOL account. We know that from court records. And from my own reporting, I know that the U.S. intelligence community accessed those records when it hacked itself into this foreign government and learned about John Bolton's AOL account and saw some things that made them suspicious that John Bolton was mishandling classified information. That started the investigation. The Biden DOJ did not move forward with this case, but the Trump administration now is. And of course, also hovering over this is the fact that John Bolton wrote a book about his time in the first Trump administration, and the Trump administration at that time accused him of using classified information in that book. He has denied that. John Bolton has said he did nothing wrong, and he believes he's being persecuted because he's been a bitter and outspoken critic of President Trump. But of course, a lot in this case will depend on the evidence. There are career prosecutors working this case. Our sources tell us this is not the same as the James Comey.
Okay, this is important. He goes on to say this is actually a real case. They have a whole lot. Well, of course, their sources are the former Biden administration that was looking into it all.
The case and the case against the New York Attorney General, in the sense that the evidence is so thin that career prosecutors wouldn't move forward with those cases. This is different. This case is believed to be a good case, although, again, John Bolton denies wrongdoing, Alex.
Let me ask you really quickly, if the word intentional is the pivotal word on which this all hangs, if that's proven that it was accidental, does it all go away for John Bolton?
Well, yeah, a mistake is not a crime. And we've seen that in case after case of classified information, including in the Joe Biden case. In the Joe Biden case, actually, the special counsel said that there was some evidence of willfulness. Joe Biden did know at one point that he had classified information. He didn't turn it in, but it wasn't enough to bring charges. Whereas in the Donald Trump case, Jack Smith, the prosecutor, said there was a mountain of evidence of willfulness. So that issue of willfulness, of intentionality, that is a key issue in these classified documents cases.
In the Trump situation, to the point of actually trying to hide boxes of information. All right.
I hate these people, right? He should be off the hook because he didn't really mean to do this. Just like Joe Biden didn't really mean to do this. Although there is some evidence, he was talking about how he had all this classified info. I mean, enough is enough, guys. You know what? I'll tell you this. Donald Trump, not a lot of love lost there for Bolton. I mean, he talks about him. I want to go back to, actually, this is in 2020, June 23rd of 2020. So his administration is winding down. John Bolton had already left. They said, hey, John, you can't publish that book. But John published it anyway. That's not even the worst of it, right? It's not just that he published the book, and that's a problem. It's that he may have emailed excerpts from the book that contain classified information, and that information may have gotten into the wrong hands. And that's why you need to protect these security clearances. You can't go looking for your next book deal just because you happen to be in the White House there taking fastidious notes, Mr. Bolton.
This is a guy with no personality. All he wanted to do is drop bombs on everybody. He was one of the many people that got us into the war in the Middle East, which was a big mistake. I said to him, let me ask you, do you think, recently, I said, what did you think? He said, I think we made the right decision. I said, you lost me there. It was the worst decision in the history of our country. I know you may disagree with that. Worst? Well, now you might agree. At the time, you would have, felt differently. But also, the Libyan model, you know what that means, right? Look it up. One of the dumbest things ever said, I think it was said on Deface the Nation, the Libyan model He said the Libyan model, that was set us back. You have no idea. John Bolton was a stupid guy, and he was a guy with no heart. And he also had a statement that he would lie whenever he had to. He has that statement. It's a well-known statement. And I fired him, and I didn't think it was a big deal. And I wasn't around him very much. But what he did do is he took classified information and he published it during a presidency. It's not, it's one thing to write a book after, during. And I believe that he's a criminal. And I believe, frankly, he should go to jail for that.
Judge?
Whoa. So, yeah, he may be going to jail for that. Again, the news coming down just moments ago, we have learned that the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland has moved forward. The Department of Justice is indicting one John Bolton for the mishandling of classified information. And this one's on a whole different scale, allegedly. Meanwhile, Kash, Patel, and Donald Trump revealing a whole lot. In a big press conference, I'll tell you, this Arctic Cross thing, the gathering of 30 million phone records, they were basically looking for all this metadata. We can't say wiretapping because New York Times is going to flip out and say we're wrong, misinformation. Okay, we won't call it wiretapping, but you know what it was? It was the gathering of metadata so that they were tolling phones. So in other words, if you had any kind of contact with anybody in this MAGA circle, they wanted to map it out basically to figure out where all these people were and then do things like, debank you or make sure that, you had no possible future. They were trying to basically cut off half the country. It was awful. And by the way, guess who was front and center of this whole entire thing? One Donald Trump. He's mad.
I think it was the worst weaponization of a political opponent in the history of the world, let alone this country. And I hope that everybody's, they're involved in it. I'm not. I'm the one that had to suffer through it and ultimately win. But what they did was criminal. Deranged Jack Smith, in my opinion, is a criminal. And I noticed his interviewer was, I think that was Weissman. And I hope they're going to look into Weissman, too. Weissman's a bad guy. And he had somebody in Lisa, who was his puppet, worked in the office really as the top person. And I think that she should be looked at very strongly. There was tremendous criminal activity having to do. If we don't have fair elections in this country, we're not going to have a country. And I've said it from the beginning, fair elections and borders. And we need also fair press, because if you don't have fair press, it's very tough.
I mean, he had everything stacked against him, everything, including Jack Smith with his investigation. He had Timothy T-Bolt gathering metadata information. Why were they doing this? Because they wanted to figure out who their enemies were, who was in control. They were going after, for goodness sakes, Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA organization. I mean, I don't know. I told you guys I got so many calls from my bank during those years. I was like, why am I suddenly so popular? I've had this bank account for years. I think I know why. Because I was probably one in the 30 million phone records. This, Donald Trump said, is a massive political crime.
They have committed massive political crime. I hope they're looking at Shifty Schiff. I hope they're looking at all these people. And I'm allowed to find out. I'm allowed to, I'm, in theory, the chief law enforcement officer. But I have a very good, talented group. This is about something else. But I hope they're looking at political crime, because there's never been so much political crime against a political opponent as what I had to go through. They raided my house in Florida. It was an illegal raid. They raided illegally my house in Florida, Mar-a-Lago. They went through the drawers of my young son. They went through all of the cabinets and drawers of the First Lady. She walked in, she said, wow, what happened? Because she's very meticulous, and this wasn't so meticulous. As she looked into the drawers and she saw everything a mess. What they did against a person that just got out of office. And then you look at these corrupt people. You look at Hunter Biden. You look at the signature. As an example, the auto pen. I just signed so many different things. I'm signing them left and right, the commissions.
I mean, that's a whole other thing, right? The auto pen. They had somebody propped up there who was seriously suffering from a mental decline. Speaking of which, did you see poor Poor McConnell today. Gosh, he's supposed to retire in 2027. I'm thinking he might want to do that a little bit earlier. We're putting that on the shorts feed. Anyway, that's rather sad to see. I will say this. It's unbelievable, though. The mainstream media, the legacy media, they continue to sit there and say, oh, Donald Trump's weaponizing things. Donald Trump is wrong to go after John Bolton. Donald Trump is wrong to go after Letitia James. I mean, I'm sorry, Letitia. You're the one who tried to go, well, you did. You got a couple of mortgages as though it was a primary and secondary residence for two different homes that were actually apparently income properties. So you can't do that. Sorry. Those in glass houses. Anyway, here's MSNBC saying, oh, this is just about weaponization. It's not.
What about the other names that Donald Trump listed off yesterday in the Oval Office?
Yeah, look, all of those people, we know that there are some investigations already ongoing, but Donald Trump has made very clear that he is directing his Justice Department to investigate his enemies. I mean, he made it clear in a Truth Social post, which is reportedly was intended to be a private message to his Attorney General. And we're seeing evidence of it all over the place, of career prosecutors under pressure to bring cases, whether there is merit or not. That is, as the senator said, that is a crisis of democracy. That's something we've never seen before. And the Justice Department historically has been independent. It doesn't appear that it's independent right now. And as Donald Trump himself said, he's the chief law enforcement officer. He said he hasn't been involved in these cases, but the evidence suggests if he's not involved, people close to him at the White House are certainly driving this train case.
I'm sorry, we're supposed to roll over and play dead? You guys are like out there mapping 30 million phone records, trying to figure out who's talking to who, where they're talking to them. And by the way, the timeline on this stuff is just scary because basically as soon as Donald Trump said he was going to run again, they went into high gear to try and stop him. And so that's what so much of this is about. And who's going to talk to me about that momentarily is, of course, Eric Trump, who has a lot to say. I mean, he and his family went through hell and back. But, look, they lived to tell about it. Didn't they ever? I just got to say, this is bonkers. As the president so eloquently puts himself.
I watch the fake news, and he's weaponized, and he wants to send them to prison. He wants all this. They indicted me like 5 times. I took a mugshot. Who would have thought it turned out to my favor? Because it was a good shot. But I had to take a mugshot. It's right out there on the door. New York Post, front page of every paper in the world. I had a mugshot. They wanted to send me. Nobody says that. They say he's acting very, very tough. He's acting unfair. Let me tell you, if anything, I think this Justice Department has been so respectful of the law, because the other Justice Department with Rita or Lisa and all of that scum, real scum, what they did to the political opponent of a guy that has a seriously low IQ. Now, in his case, it was low based on his career, but it got real low, okay? It was descending rapidly. Yeah. But what they did to go after his political opponent is legendary, worse than any third world country, banana republic. And what we're doing is nothing. Are you kidding? Nothing. They write stories. Why aren't they doing this? And there's never been anybody treated in the history of politics. They say the 2 worst treated presidents by the media, etc., was that man right there, the late, great Abraham Lincoln, and this guy right there, Andrew Jackson. They say Andrew Jackson was treated terribly. They give him number 1 and number 2, but that was before I came along, Newt. I say I have number 1 times 10.
Number 1 times 10. You can say that again. I mean, and everyone associated with him. So this is what we're all discovering right now. And again, I credit the work of Kash, Patel and my friend Dan Bongino doing an excellent job uncovering all of this. It has to be done, right? Because you can't live in a society where the other side can weaponize itself against half the country. That just can't be the United States of America that we love. Kash Patel speaking out just recently on this. Listen.
They put this information, those that weaponized the FBI and prior leadership at DOJ and FBI, they took this information where they subpoenaed 8 sitting United States senators, put it in a lockbox, put that lockbox in a vault, and then put that vault in a cyber place where no one can see or search these files. They're called restricted access and
Okay, this is important. So basically they hid all this. They were doing all this metadata gathering, and then they hid it in a quote unquote vault. In other words, behind various computer layers so nobody could find it. And these guys went in and found it with the help of some whistleblowers.
Prohibited access. Restricted access means some people get to see it. Prohibited access, you put it in there when you want to hide it from the world, and that takes the authorization of the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI. So not only did they weaponize this law enforcement, but when we got in there, and when I got in as the FBI Director, from my experience as Russiagate, I knew where to look and what rooms to open and what doors to kick down. And that's what we did. We found this information to expose the politicization by Jack Smith and the prior Department of Justice. I mean, just think about it. 8 sitting United States senators, phone records were gathered and subpoenaed through the grand jury process, and it was buried and wormholed with the hope that no one would find it. So we're just scratching the surface here, but accountability is coming. You're darn right I fired those agents.
Okay, and so they fired all of those FBI agents that were involved in that metadata gathering. And they had to inform, Dan had to inform these 8 senators, along with one House representative the other day, that they had been subjected to this. I mean, they're mad, right? They're looking at it saying, wait a second, what about my own civil liberties? Like, aren't there laws against this? And the short answer is, yeah, you better believe there are laws. Like, what happened has never happened before. Like, maybe if you go back to Hoover's FBI and then, you know, going into the 60s and the spying that was done, for example, on Martin Luther King, maybe you're going to get close. But this takes the cake and is not legal. I mean, they can't do this because the FBI code doesn't even allow for it. But effectively, what we believe was really going on was that they were trying to create an enemies list. They were trying to make sure that they could cut off half the country, all in the name of preserving democracy, right? That's what we heard day in, day out. After J6, they decided to use the J6 case, although they came forward like years after, right? I mean, just looking at the timing, J6 happens, J6 2021, you have the Capitol riot, and the Democrats win the Senate and House very narrowly. And then throughout February through April of 2022, that's when Timothy Thibault starts that Arctic frost thing. And Timothy Thibault, he goes in and he decides he's going to initiate this investigation himself. And not only is he going to initiate it, he's going to actually okay it. I think I saw one of you guys in the chats talking about the self-approval rule 3523. You know, you can't actually do that. And the metadata shows that this is exactly what he did. And just to go back to what the FBI actually says on record, again, Section 523 of the FBI's Domestic Investigations Guide says you cannot actually have a self-approval rule. There's a no self-approval rule. You can't decide, Timothy Thibault, that you want to go after the metadata of all of these people and start connecting the dots and figure out who they're talking to and where they're talking to them at. You can't do that without some kind of greater approval. But if you go in and you look at the Word document where he put all this stuff, what we have learned, and this is through Grassley as well as Kash as well as Bongino, we have learned that he actually initiated the investigation and he was the one who went in and improved it. Like, this is not legal. So what was going on? My friend John Solomon saying it very well, mapping MAGA.
What were they doing? They were mapping the MAGA movement with every piece of data they could. It was basically creating an enemies list.
An enemies list. Okay? How do you like that? Listen, I mean, I felt it. Did you feel it? I mean, we all had experiences with things getting shut down on social media. I know plenty of people lost their bank accounts during that time. We're going to ask Eric Trump all about it coming up. But again, it goes back to this guy, Thibault. He actually resigned, I think, in 2022 because there was a lot of criticism on how he was handling the Hunter Biden laptop investigation, or perhaps not even handling that investigation. And so he was facing a lot of scrutiny. He wound up stepping down, but this is the guy that originated it all. And what cracks me up is they think we are supposed to just roll over and play dead, like nothing to see here. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that, nor is Lindsey Graham.
Do you think that crosses a line between the Justice Department being independent from the executive branch?
I think our Justice Department in the hands of Biden crossed every line there is to cross. I think within 3 days of announcing he was going to run for president in 2024, he did that in 2022.
But what about Trump?
He had 91
Senator, what about
indictments.
Trump? What about?
Yeah, Now, I think the grand jury is going to take care of this, but you didn't care any about this. You didn't care that Letitia James made up charges that no one's ever faced.
But Senator
Alvin
Biden
Bragg
never
made up
publicly
charges
called
no one
for
ever
Trump
faced.
to be indicted.
He had 90. Biden regretted that they didn't do it before the election. Jack Smith surveilled my phone records and 8 other senators. Jack Smith introduced his brief against Trump October the 24th before the 2024 election, violating every protocol just to politicize the election. So this may bother you that people are being held accountable. It doesn't bother me one damn bit.
No, doesn't bother me at all either. Because you know what? You need some kind of solution for this. You got to fix it. Here's Donald Trump talking about the weaponization that we saw of Biden's Justice Department, of Biden's FBI, and of the Democrat Party, which, by the way, went and redelivered those phone records. Adam Kinzinger allegedly handing them over in 2023 after the J6 committee had been dissolved. This is messed up, you guys.
I watch the fake news, and he's weaponized, and he wants to send them to prison. He wants all this. They indicted me like 5 times. I took a mugshot. Who would have thought it turned out to my favor? Because it was a good shot. But I had to take a mugshot. It's right out there on the door. New York Post, front page of every paper in the world. I had a mugshot. They wanted to send me. Nobody says that. They say he's acting very, very tough. He's acting unfair. Let me tell you, if anything, I think this Justice Department has been so respectful of the law, because the other Justice Department, with Rita or Lisa and all of that scum, real scum, what they did to the political opponent of a guy that has a seriously low IQ. Now, in his case, it was low.
Biden. But in other words, they knew that Biden really wasn't that great a candidate. They knew it. They knew he was suffering from mental decline. I mean, we can talk about the auto pen, which is another investigation that's going on. But again, I go back to just, I'm concerned, right, as an American, that we had our rights trampled all over. I mean, if they're gathering 30 million phone records and they're running with that and they're initiating an investigation without the proper clearance, in other words, not even following their own no self-approval rule, then we have some problems. I mean, you get the Wiretap Act, you get the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, you get the State Privacy and Eavesdropping Laws Act. I mean, all of these things, they carry criminal and civil penalties. So sure enough, they've fired these people that were involved. But I have a bigger question, because it's not just the peons in the FBI that were doing this. Fine, get rid of them, right? You know, maybe they have their biases, but it actually starts at the top. It's Biden. It's Obama. It is this Timothy Thibault, who apparently went forward with all this without the proper clearance. I mean, you need, by the way, the telecom companies, right? One of you guys, I saw that in the chat. You were like, what the heck are the phone companies doing, turning over all these records? What did they have? A court order, a subpoena, a national security letter via the U.S. Patriot Act, a foreign intelligence FISA order? Maybe they had some of this stuff, because they were kind of making it up out of thin air. I mean, they had J6 to go on, right? After J6, all bets were off. They figured that they were on firm, solid ground, saying, well, we're doing this in the interest of protecting democracy. Yeah, whatever. I mean, did you see Nancy Pelosi? She was actually questioned about this recently. She's like, oh, no, it's all in the interest of preserving democracy. That's what I care about the most. Well, she kind of had this unhinged moment, really, really unhinged moment. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, here, meet the real Nancy Pelosi. Will the real Nancy Pelosi please stand up? I want to show you. Here we go. We put in the shorts feed yesterday. Take a peek. Real Nancy Pelosi, ladies and gentlemen.
Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up.
Whoa.
Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
It's getting ugly. Yeah, it is getting ugly, okay? So that goes back to J6 and lots of questions. She actually went on to blame the president and said that he didn't authorize the National Guard. In actuality, they needed her to do that, and for whatever reason, she chose not to. But she did choose to bring her daughter, Alexandra, along with her little camcorder so she could, documentary filmmaker that she is, put together all the footage that we would then see in a loop over and over and over again in mainstream media on ABC News and on CNN. So Lots of questions about all of that. It's almost like they kind of wanted to make something bigger out of it because it served their purposes and enabled them perhaps to get one of these court orders or subpoenas or anything that they wanted in order to go after all of those phone records. Of course, interestingly, they waited to go after the phone records. Again, that's a little strange because it wasn't until late 2023. Don't forget, was it November of 2023 that Donald Trump announced that he was going to run for president again? And so interesting timing that Adam Kinzinger, who was no longer in Congress, decides to take all those records, those 30 million phone records, and brings them back to the FBI because they wanted to go after him again, mapping MAGA, creating an enemies list to make sure that they could ensure he had no path to election and that they could ensure that anybody who supported him was cut off.
The committee gets up and running in 2022. They go out and get this massive dragnet of phone records, 30 million. You don't need 30 million phone calls to figure out what was going on January 6th. What were they doing? They were mapping the MAGA movement with every piece of data they could. It was basically creating an enemies list. That's what the J6 committee was doing in this project. And think about the scope and scale of what they've now done. 30 million lines of phone records trying to figure out everybody who talked to the Trump White House. 92 groups, including Charlie Kirk's TPUSA and everybody else in the conservative movement. 8 members of Congress in the Senate, 1 member of the Congress in the House. They were mapping an enemies list. This was an investigation purportedly to solve what happened at the Capitol that instead was trying to figure out who are the movers and shakers in the MAGA movement that we can stop in 2024.
So that's what they were up to. Okay, now it all makes all the sense in the world. I mean, totally makes all the sense in the world. And the timing, again, timing. Think about the timing. Because they waited on the J6 investigation. It was like, is he going to run? Is he going to run? Is he going to run? They start the Arctic frost investigation at least a year and change after the J6 incident. In late 2022, the J6 committee, it dissolves. You have the midterms, okay? The midterms show that the left is out, and then they start collecting the toll data. Like, does that not seem just a little peculiar? Like, after the J6 committee is gone, that's in September of 23 when the FBI began its, quote, preliminary toll analysis on GOP senators. Anybody who had interacted with the Trump White House, they were suddenly being put under a magnifying glass. That is very weird. But again, Solomon's done some good reporting. I want to go back to him for a second.
That plot gets stopped by the American people in December 2022 because Americans choose Republicans. Republicans come in. The Democrats get thrown out of the House. A year later, when Adam Kinzinger is no longer a member of the committee,
right.
He's no longer a member of the House. He no longer has protection of the speech and debate clause. He's calling up the FBI and trying to give them these records, which, by the way, the FBI would never have been able to get this large a swath of records. It's just too broad a request, right? There wouldn't be a legitimate investigative need for that many records. He's trying to say, hey, I don't know, but let's just get them to you guys. He's making that call in December of 2023, 4 years after most of the cases have already been brought in January 6th. Why is he doing that? He's not doing it for some legislative purpose. He's not doing it for some criminal purpose, because J6 is mostly solved by that point. He's doing it to try to give the FBI one more piece of weaponry to stop Donald Trump from winning the presidency in 24. That's what is so concerning. It's a civil liberties violation that then gets politically weaponized by offering it to the FBI.
My gosh. I mean, this is huge, okay, guys? This is bigger than Watergate, and the mainstream media won't cover it other than to say Josh Hawley was incorrect to call it wiretapping because it's really phone tolling. I don't care. This is not okay. What were they really up to? I think they were trying to figure out just exactly how they could disband all of this. And you know, they had the mainstream media cooperating every single step of the way, and they had their peeps. They had Letitia James, they had Alvin Bragg, they had Fannie Willis, they had Jack Smith, all there working overtime to try and help them out. Alongside, of course, the likes of ABC News. A lot of speculation that one ABC News anchor, George Stephanopoulos, I call him Georgie Poo. Georgie Poo may be out because, you know, he's become kind of a headache for the company. And now it looks like he might get sued for libel again. I don't know. But Tom Homan, he wasn't too pleased about what Georgie Poo has been reporting on the air, asking the vice president about. So the story, it is alleged, and it's disputed entirely by the White House and by Tom Homan. I'm going to show you this in a second. It's being alleged that he took some kind of $50,000 bribe in order to do some kind of construction deal. The details are a little bit fuzzy. The whole story is a little bit fuzzy. Again, I want to reiterate that Tom's saying this is not true. The White House is saying it is not true. And we know what these people do, right? Can we go back to the dirty dossier? That was not true. Can we go back to, I can think of all kinds of things. Them trying to tell us with 51X spooks that the Hunter Biden laptop was nothing but misinformation. Turns out that was not true. Or what about, could that virus have possibly come out of a Wuhan lab? Nope, they told us not true, but it was. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in whatever they're saying. I do have some faith in Tom Homan. I've known him a long time. He is salt to the earth. He was asked about this very question by another one of my former colleagues. I feel like I know the whole world these days. Bill O'Reilly, let's take a listen.
I know George Stephanopoulos is one of your best friends. He convicted you on television, okay?
Okay.
Of a
Whoa. See, that's a big deal. Did you hear what he said? He convicted you on television. He said, you did this, and we're pretty certain you did this. So this is where Tom Homan has the ability to go back on ABC News. Go back just like Donald Trump did. He sued him for $16 million, and he can say, hey, you know what? This was libel. I may be a public person, but you can't just libel me. And so this puts, once again, this particular anchor in the hot seat. He, in my estimation, really can't stay on much longer because he keeps costing his company money. I mean, $16 million for this guy, and I'm telling you, nobody watches his show. Anyway, here we go. Bill O'Reilly asking Tom about it.
$1 bribe. Stephanopoulos did this on ABC. The vice president, J.D. Vance, defended you. And I thought he did so pretty well because due process is important. Do you want to clarify anything about that situation?
I didn't take $50,000 from anybody.
Okay. How did that get into the mainstream, do you think?
I have no idea. Look, there's been hit pieces on me since I came back to this administration. There's got to be 30, 40 hit pieces on me about how I'm involved with contracting or government contracts, when in fact, day one I came back, I recused myself from any discussions on any contract or any monetary decisions like that because I used to have a company that did consulting. So I cleared myself day one. What people don't talk about is I took a significant, huge pay cut to come back and serve my nation. And I'm not enriching myself doing this job.
Does this make you angry that they're coming at you this way?
I don't care what people think about me and never have. No, because I know who I am. I work for the greatest president in the history of this nation, in my opinion, and we're doing the right thing every day.
Okay.
Oh, you hear that? So, look, what actually went down is something that people are now saying could result in a lawsuit by Tom Homan against ABC News. So then Georgie Poo finds himself right back in the same spot he was again. At what point, if you're Disney, if you're Bob Iger, you're like, buddy, come on, give me a break. Go do those cooking segments over on Good Morning America, would you? Here is the clip that everyone's talking about that the president has just ripped ABC News over.
I don't know what tape you're referring to, George. I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about. Meanwhile, low-income women can't get food because the Democrats and Chuck Schumer have shut down the government. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer has shut down the government. You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George, I said that I don't.
Up next. We'll be right back.
Woo! Boo! Okay, that's what you call the oldest trick in the book. I'm telling you, I've been in this business long enough. He gets his final word in. He doesn't allow the Vice President of the United States of America to say boo. And again, I think that kind of he's run his course. I mean, frankly, he's a political op anyway. He came from the Clinton White House. He was a flack for Bill Clinton, right? During the Lewinsky days, that's how he sort of rose to fame. Infamy, shall we say. Anyway, so Georgie Poo winds up getting a job as the main gig, as the political journalist, du jour for years and years and years over at This Week with George Stephanopoulos on ABC, their signature political show. I don't think that's really appropriate. I mean, try and pick somebody who doesn't have such entrenched bias, would you? Meanwhile, if I'm Tom Homan, I'm thinking about going after him for libel because of what he said. That's kind of an egregious thing to say about somebody, that they took a $50,000 bribe and you don't have that all firmly reported. What are you going on? A bunch of hearsay? Oh, kind of like that dossier thing, right? I mean, we're right back where we started, you guys. You see how this game is played, and it's not good. It's not good. It's not good. It's not good. You know who had to deal with a lot of this? A ton of this, right, was none other than the Trump family itself. I mean, including one Eric Trump. Eric Trump dealing with the brunt of it. It's unbelievable. But guess what? He and his family, I want to say last laugh, but that's not actually the appropriate way to characterize this, because Eric, he went through a lot, right? A whole darn lot. And he lived to tell about it, as did his dad. I spoke with him moments ago.
I watched the fake news, and he's weaponized. And he wants to send them to prison. He wants all this. They indicted me like 5 times. I took a mugshot. Who would have thought it turned out to my favor? Because it was a good shot. But I had to take a mugshot. It's right out there on the door. New York Post. Front page of every paper in the world.
You better believe it. But you know what? He came back. He came back and he won, and it's unbelievable. Well, there's a brand new book out by none other than his son, Eric Trump, called Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save the Nation. It just hit #1 on the charts, my goodness, and I'm thrilled to bring Eric into the conversation right now. Eric, congratulations. Wow. Not just on the book and #1, that goes without saying, but, congratulations on all that you and your family have been able to accomplish, because I got to tell you, you've been through HLL and back. You know it better than anyone. It's what you get into in the book. Is this surreal in some ways?
Listen, me being a #1, best-selling author, it was not in the cards, Trish. That much I can tell you. And it probably wasn't in the cards for us to win the first election against Hillary Clinton when we didn't know what a delegate was and we didn't know what a caucus was. And when we were sitting in wooden pews in freezing cold courtrooms in 2024, as they were trying to imprison us for doing nothing wrong, it probably wasn't in the cards that we came back and had one of the biggest wins in modern political history. And that's what the siege was about. They tried to destroy us. They tried to destroy this country. They tried to destroy, you, Trish. They tried to destroy all your viewers. They went after all of us. They went after America. They went after the Constitution. They went after religion. They went after family. They went after all of us. I mean, so many people watching right now probably had people jump over them because of DEI and all sorts of other nonsense, right? They attacked all of us, and they went through our family to do it. They indicted us. They indicted my father 91 times. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history for doing nothing wrong. They spied on his campaign. They leaked our tax returns, my tax returns, my father's tax returns, all our corporate employees' tax returns. They leaked them all to the New York Times. They made up the Russia hoax. They made up the dirty dossier. Every AG, every DA in the country, whether it be Letitia James or obviously Jack Smith as special counsel, and Alvin Bragg and Fani Willis, and I could go on and on. They came after us like we were dogs. They got rid of our voice. They silenced us on social media. They gag ordered us. 91 indictments. They took him off the ballot in Maine. They took him off the ballot in Colorado. I could go on and on. I could go on and on for hours.
I know. I still have PTSD. The whole thing was so unbelievably traumatic. And, and yet, look, it's a testimony to not just you and your family and your dad, but of course to America as well, right? Because America came back really, really strong, elected your father, and now it's all coming out, right? It's all getting exposed. I have a question for you. When this was all going on, was there any part of you, Eric, that was like, oh my gosh, Dad, what'd you get us into? Was there any part of you that was like, okay, we need to scale back because like this is going to be generationally bad?
Oh, there was definitely a couple times where I go, what the hell did we get ourselves into? But it was more of a we versus a you, right? No, I said that. Listen, I came out of the courthouse with him, and I never left his side. I was with this, and I talked a lot about it in Under Siege. I was by his side every single day, and he turned around as the first person. He shook his hand. 34 felony convictions. They've all been overturned. They want to throw him in jail. And we got into the car. We got into the armored vehicles. We're going up the FDR Drive in New York, and I looked at him and I said, he goes, honey, I don't know how, but we're going to win this thing. We're going to win it all. That's how confident he was. And I said, we either win this thing. It's either the White House or you and I are both in jail for doing absolutely nothing wrong. Like, that was the width of the pendulum. I mean, it was either 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue or they would have locked him up and me, and they would have thrown away the keys. They would have destroyed our family. They would have destroyed our company. That's what they were trying to do every single day. And listen, he beat the mainstream media. He beat a corrupt DOJ. He beat a corrupt FBI. He beat an apparatus that was spying on his campaign. They used every corner of the government to try and take him down. This is what you would expect to see in a third world country. Yes. But when I got the call saying, I hear there are secret servers in the basement of Trump Tower communicating with the Kremlin, I started laughing. I go, well, first of all, we don't have servers in the basement of Trump Tower. Second of all, we're like largely a cloud-based computing company. We don't really have servers in general. And we don't know a damn person. I mean, we were trying to figure out what an Iowa caucus is, let alone trying to figure out how to communicate with the Kremlin. Give me a break. That's how little about politics we knew. Yeah. And honestly, it was the most unlikely journey, but the book is actually a really kind of inspirational one, right? It's not just the siege. It's how you could overcome the greatest darkness. You could have that David and Goliath story, and you better believe that the government was Goliath and we were David, right?
Sure.
And you could overcome, and you could persevere, and we could win. And then I see my father 2 days ago, 3 days ago in the Middle East peace. You see taxes coming down in this country. You see the big, beautiful bill. You see inflation coming down, to normal levels. You see the lowest gas prices we've seen in years. You see people who are proud to stand up for the national anthem. You see churches filled on weekends. You see America respected again on the world stage. And every aspect of this fight, which was so brutal and so vicious and so vindictive and the worst of what you could possibly imagine any government could be, it all became worth it, and it's all worth it. And honestly,
I think that's why it's so successful, because it resonates with everyone. Everybody was touched by this in some way. Cancel culture on steroids, and there's a sense of victory, there's a sense of relief. But I think people are also very aware of how fragile the system is, right? Because who's to say that it couldn't all go back to that tomorrow? And I think this is so much of what your dad is crusading for, at least the FBI is, right? With everything that's been revealed thus far, Kash, Patel, Dan Bongino doing a good job there, because we need to make sure that, you don't have more Letitia Jameses out there in the world. That one really got me, as a business reporter. I was like, man, that was a crazy case.
With $600 million for never missing a mortgage payment and having your banks, including Deutsche Bank, testify that you were the greatest borrower that they've ever had. I mean, that was the weaponization of the system. Trish, apparently Mar-a-Lago's worth $18 million, right? I mean,
I'll buy it for that.
I said, what tennis court, right? It's kind of, it's really an amazing thing. But no, we beat the system, and now, honestly, mainstream media doesn't have a voice in this country anymore. They really don't. It's independent journalists like you that are doing unbelievably well, right? NBC, ABC, they become a joke, right? No one trusts them. No one believes them. My father won the popular vote despite having 98% negative media coverage. He won every swing state. Every single state in the nation went to the right. We won Miami-Dade by 11 points, a county, right? That's Miami, obviously, that hasn't been won in 37 years. America was tired of it. They wanted our country back. They wanted to have a fighter back, and they wanted respect for our national anthem and our American flag and our Constitution and our family unit and religion. And so we won this together. We won the siege together. You, who's always been a great supporter, your viewers, we won this fight together. And again, it's baffling to me. I built skyscrapers, right? I never thought I was.
I'm suddenly a #1 best-selling author.
Every ounce of my heart and soul into writing every word of a book. And it's amazing how it's caught on and gone crazy.
No, it's an incredible story, an incredible triumphant story. So you build skyscrapers, I get it, but you got away with people too. And I'm kind of curious. You got any ideas about the future? I mean, you got the name, you got the experience, at least out there on the campaign trail. You know what you're up against, and MAGA movement is going to live on in a big way. You are part of that. I mean, at some point when your dad's not there in the Oval Office, what are you thinking?
Listen, we sure as hell have figured out the system. I'll give you that, right? We have definitely figured out the system for sure, right? And we have certainly developed a voice. I mean, if we didn't have our voice, we would have been dead. We would have been imprisoned. We would have been bankrupt. We would have been locked away and gone, right? So you better have had a voice. Those are the only two things that saved us, right? And maybe a little bit of a pocketbook, honestly. As unconventional as it was, the fact that my father had enough zeros on his balance sheet that he could fend off the attacks using his own money, because they would have just destroyed anybody else. They would have run through any other candidate who would not been able to afford the actual fight at hand. And so,
well, not just financially, right, but emotionally, because your dad's a special person that's just willing to get up and fight again. Oh. And clearly all of you around him are willing to engage that. I mean, this was a family battle.
I often say it's like a little like masochistic, right? Where you kind of like enjoy the feeling of pain or something along those lines, right? It's like, if it wasn't Trish, there's no damn way you would have done this. And yet we never gave up. In the darkest moments, we never went. I mean, we kept punching. I remember leaving those courtrooms with him and literally going to fundraisers, meaning he gets indicted at 34 felonies, again, all overturned. And we drive from 34 felonies into a fundraising, to try and raise some money. I mean, we never stopped. We never turned it off.
What was it like? I mean, you were right there with him by his side. Your stepmother, Melania Trump, I think I read something about you saying they were actually trying to drive a wedge between Melania and your dad. Like it just went. And then I think about poor Barron, right? Your younger brother, who's like a kid during all of this. And I can't even imagine growing up. I mean, it's bad enough being Trish Regan's kid. I can't imagine what it was like to be Barron, who, doesn't have the age and wisdom of someone like you. He's still a kid.
Could you imagine if you picked up and you saw a husband or whatever, and they're talking about, I can't even, golden, I'm worried about saying the second word, and prostitution and making up all these stories. Now, this was all paid for by the Democratic Party. There was zero truth to it. In any fair world, these people would all be sued for slander, and frankly, they'd probably be imprisoned for slander. That's the extent of the fallacy that they created. But this was our government at work. They were paying for this crap, and they were orchestrating it all over the place. So if anybody doesn't think that the intent of that is obviously to defame, to embarrass, right? To act as the October surprise, something that is popped on you so late that you can't actually disprove it and you lose votes because of it. But you don't think those stories were directly intended to try and separate a family unit? They did everything they could to try and separate all of us and break us and divide us. You know how many times prosecutors came to me and said, hey, if you say anything about your father that's negative, we will let you go. No problem. You don't need to take this deposition. It was extortion at the absolute highest level. I talk all about it in the book. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to break us, and we never broke as a family.
Well, it's good for you guys and good for the country. So there are a lot of people in the media that say, oh, this is retribution. He's going to go after everybody because he's angry. But at the same time, I'm looking at it, and I remember talking to your dad when he was first time in office, and I said, hey, why didn't you go after Hillary Clinton, Mr. President? He said, Trish, you know what? She was the wife of a former president. And, she was the woman I was running against. Like, it wouldn't have been appropriate. It would have been Banana Republic-esque. I think he was so focused on making the economy better and doing the right thing by the nation, he wasn't interested in any kind of retribution. But the problem with that was they were, right? And they kept it going and going and going and going and going. And so it's sort of like, Eric, if you don't do something, right? If you roll over and play dead, then actually you're creating a disservice for the entire country and for every party in the future.
Jack Smith planted classified folders on the office floor of Mar-a-Lago. They raided his home and they said it was on behalf of NARA, National Archives. It wasn't on behalf of NARA. Joe Biden orchestrated the raid with Merrick Garland and everyone else. There has to be accountability, right? Hillary Clinton back in the day deleted 33,000 emails and then joked about, oh, haha, it's just bleach bit. You know, you just bleach it. What do? You wipe it off. You know, so funny. They wrote the dirty dossiers. They made up the Russia smears. Think about that. They pitted the two largest nuclear superpowers against each other for a period of 3 years so that some power-hungry older lady could get 3 more votes. I mean, that's what they did. They made it impossible for us to speak to Russia. Right? The biggest nuclear superpower. God forbid there was ever a conflict or a mistake or something, because they wanted to make up a narrative that would get them a couple extra votes. And when they lost, you know, allow them to save a little face for the fact that they got beaten by a bunch of you know, people who knew nothing about, like we were all like hoodlum. We didn't know anything about politics. The hell did we know about
that was the thing. You were the outsiders, right? How dare you as an outsider come in? They had a system that worked for the system. And all of a sudden it was getting shaken up by somebody who didn't know anything about the system. And it really was power to the people and the people having a voice. And I think that just, it clearly didn't go over well. I'm astonished. And like, we're learning new things every day. The 30 million phone records that they were, you know, I can't say tapping. I can't say wiretapping. They were tolling. Forgive me, the New York Times and PBS are all over us for saying tapping. They didn't wiretap, but they were tolling. They were gathering the metadata. I'm like, whoa. I mean, you think about the debanking that went on, all of it, Eric. And you were on the front lines of it.
I was the most debanked person in the history of this nation. Capital One called me in the middle of the night, 300 bank accounts gone, Bank of America gone, JP Morgan Chase gone. I mean, how do you run and these are for condo associations, these are for hotels, these are for, you know, golf courses in upstate New York. I mean, every account stripped out from under us, right? And it was all orchestrated. It was all coordinated. That was the siege. Just kill them in any ways possible. Bankrupt them if they can, silence them, gag order them, debank them, you know, deplatform them, go after their wives, raid their homes, you know, go after their family, try and extort their employees, you know, weaponize the media against them. It was, and by the way, everybody in this country felt it, right? We were the tip of the spear. There's no question we were the tip of the spear. But conservatives all across this nation. So this book is for them. And the reason is, number one, is people are pissed off. I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off about Butler, right? They almost took my father's head off, and we've seen one picture of the guy, and the kid looks like he was 14 years old at the time. We know more about a Venezuelan gang member that just got deported from this country than we do about a guy who tried to blow my father's head off. You know, his body was cremated about 4 days later. You know, most household pets take longer than 4 days to cremate, and this guy is, you know, why haven't we gotten answers? Why haven't we gotten any accountability? I'm pissed off, and this country is pissed off.
No, there's a lot of questions. We need accountability.
We don't want revenge. We want accountability, and we want real accountability.
Because it can't happen again. It just can't. Because who the heck is ever going to run for office?
Well, AOC maybe. I mean,
don't say that. No, don't say that.
Incompetent, and that will be the end of our nation.
Yeah. Well, Mamdami is kind of, you know, a scary warning sign in New York. Listen, I so appreciate you taking the time. Congratulations. Under siege. Boy, were you guys ever under siege. This is the story of Eric and his family and how they triumphed, and America triumphed, despite all the odds that were stacked against you. Eric, it is good to see you. Thank you, and congratulations.
You're the greatest, Trish.
There's the book right there, Under Siege, hit #1. You can get it on Amazon today. We thank Eric for his time. Gosh, they went through a lot, did they not, everyone? A lot. I mean, all this stuff, and you heard him mention, like, even the DEI, some people lost their jobs because of DEI, et cetera. It's actually one of the reasons why, well, you know, heck, I kind of lost my job, right? Because I was willing to say things that you weren't supposed to say back in March 2020. It's all right. Believe me, it's very much all right. Way better over here. And I started a company called 76 Research in part because of that. 76 Research, because I'm like, wait a second, why is DEI and ESG creeping into how we invest? I mean, that's ridiculous, right? And we've had tremendous returns. Just a wonderful experience over there. You can get the 76 report for $1 a month. Go to 76research.com. For the first 2 months, it's $1 with my code, DOLLAR, and then it goes to $9.95. You can get some of the portfolios as well if you're interested. Go check it out. Letitia James, she's back in the news, baby. And it looks like they're going to run someone against her. I mean, already her party's like, whoa, Letitia. You know, it's not looking good. I mean, your poll numbers are worse than Chuck Schumer's. And so now they've got somebody who they're considering, well, this is not the Democrats, but rather the Republicans who are now looking at who they could possibly run against one Letitia James, because you see, Letitia is probably not going to be able to make it. I'm not kidding, because this particular guy, you're looking at his picture, his name is Michael Henry. And Michael Henry, last time around, ran against Letitia. He's a Republican. He got 45.4% of the vote, while Letitia got 54.6%. So like they were 9 points away. And that was before we learned that, Letitia was harboring a fugitive. This is the picture in the New York Post. All in the family. The mortgage document, by the way, is now in question because apparently she signed on to a mortgage saying that it was her secondary residence as opposed to an income property, which is what she called it in something else, an income property. Here's Letitia James's niece, the niece who's apparently she's supposed to be visiting with her parole officer in North Carolina. Instead, she's living in Auntie's house in Virginia. So that can't be very good, right? That can't be very good. I think Letitia is actually starting to read the handwriting that's on the wall, which is why in her very first appearance since the indictment at a big rally for none other than Comrade Mamdani, who, by the way, wants to take your property, especially if you're white. He won't get rid of that little clause in his campaign talking points. Yeah, if you're white, he's going to come after your property. Sorry, buddy, that's not constitutional. Anyway, she's losing it.
See, I know what it feels like to be attacked for just doing your job. But I also know what it feels like to overcome adversity. And so I stand on solid rock. And I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will not capitulate. I will not give in. I will not give up. You come for me, you gotta come to all of us. All of us. Every single one of us. We're all in this together. You see, I've learned to stand on the shoulders.
She's hard to take. I'm sorry I have to subject you guys to that. But this is the key document in question, that second home rider that she signed on to. It seems that she said she was not actually going to use that for anything other than a vacation home. But in fact, in another filing, guess what? It was an income property. Okay, so which is it? Are you once again trying to, manipulate the law for yourself, Letitia James? Didn't you say that powerful people can't do that? They can't get special mortgage deals because, it wouldn't be fair to the rest of the system. She got an 0.8% better rate, adding up to something like $17,000 over the life of the loan. And apparently some kind of cash out for $3,000 in change, according to the Daily Mail, right away. Yeah, Letitia James, you are in trouble. You're in trouble along with one John Bolton. More information coming into us as we speak. The former head of the NSC, John Bolton, has been indicted. It is believed that he was basically using all of these classified documents and emailing them around, which is kind of a problem. Here is MSNBC explaining the charges against the former head of the NSC, Deep Stater John Bolton.
So John Bolton was charged with 18 federal counts, and I apologize, I'm going to look down. I'm reading this. We're still just getting this. We have the first 8 counts are transmission of national defense information. The second set of 9 counts, that's counts 9 through 18, is retention of national defense information. And that looks like it's U.S. Code Title 19, Section 793D and E, which is part of the Espionage Act. Now, there was another statute that they were considering, and it looks like they've only charged him with those Espionage Act statutes, but we're still reading through this indictment. It's 26 pages long. There's a lot of background information here, and I apologize, but we're literally just getting this in right now, so I'm still...
Okay, so she's still getting it in right now. So here's the short answer. He's kind of cooked. 18 counts of violation of the Espionage Act. John Bolton, this is not looking good for you, And don't forget, Bolton is the guy who was trying to give us a song and dance. Remember the song and dance back when they were going after Donald Trump and raiding Mar-a-Lago? I do recall John Bolton trying to say, well, Trump shouldn't have made off with those classified documents. I mean, while knowing that he was doing the same thing. Here we go.
Will have to prove it. Then he has committed very serious crimes. This is a devastating indictment. I speak here as an alumnus of the Justice Department myself, because not only is it powerful, it's very narrowly tailored. They didn't throw everything up against the wall to see what would stick. This really is a rifle shot, and I think it should be the end of Donald Trump's political career.
Ooh. Well, it definitely wasn't the end of his political career. Now, was it? No. You see, Donald Trump came in and came back with a bang. And now, John Bolton, it's you that's actually facing serious charges. 18 counts of violating the Espionage Act. I mean, whoa, this is not good for him. As we saw earlier, the president is reacting.
I didn't know that. You told me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but.
Wow. Okay, 26 pages, 18 counts against him, the Espionage Act, big deal. So, we might see some people going to prison. We really might see some folks going to prison. And I'm sure Donald Trump will tell you it couldn't have happened to a nicer man. He definitely did not like John Bolton. He didn't like his approach to warfare. He didn't like his, I think, sort of what was viewed as a callous sort of understanding of how, human life is actually important. I think he didn't like how he was always one to pull a trigger, shall we say. So this is a big deal. John Bolton, again, being indicted. Letitia James being indicted. James Comey being indicted. The expectation is that Adam Schiff may be in the works next. We've talked about this, of course. Adam Schiff looking like he might be indicted as well. Look, it's all coming as there's some really good things in the world. Good stuff happening. I mean, we got the peace deal going on in the Middle East, and now just moments ago we learned that Donald Trump is going to be having a big meeting with Putin. And what are they working towards? World peace. Literally, he wants to find a resolution to the war in Ukraine. Here he is speaking out on how he's going to sit down with Putin and try to address this.
Could I follow up? You also posted about your call with President Putin today, and you spoke about the meeting in Hungary with him. Do you have a timeline or a date set for when?
I would say within 2 weeks or so. Pretty quick. Marco Rubio is going to be meeting with his counterpart, as you know, Lavrov, and they'll be meeting pretty soon. They're going to set up a time and a place very shortly. Maybe it's already set up. They've already spoken. And I thought it was a very good phone call. I thought very productive. But I'll be meeting with President Putin, and we'll make a determination. Tomorrow I'm meeting with President Zelensky, and I'll be telling him about the call. I mean, we have a problem. They don't get along too well, those two. And it's sometimes tough to have meetings, so we may do something where we're separate but equal. We'll meet and talk parties, but this is a terrible relationship the two of them have, and it's one of those things. I've seen things that nobody would believe, but this is one of them. So we're going to be meeting in Hungary. Viktor Orban is going to be hosting, and it's really something that's time. Last week, over 7,000 people were killed. That's ridiculous. And it doesn't affect our country. We're not losing people. We're not losing Bobby. We're not losing Americans. But they're losing Russians, Ukrainians, mostly soldiers, for the most part soldiers. And we hope we're going to get it stopped. I thought this would be, because of my relationship with President Putin, I thought this would be very quick. And it's turned out to be, who would think I did Middle East before I did this? We did a total of 8 now, 7 and now 8. And we're going to make this number 9.
They didn't want him there. Think about that. If this were up to Comey, he'd be in the double wide.
Convict him, bar him from future service,
have the prosecutors, the local prosecutors in New York, pursue him for the fraudster that he was before he ever became president, lock him up for the garden variety frauds he did there, but don't give him that center stage, that dominant role in our national life, just down the street where Joe Biden is trying to heal this nation.
I'll tell you, it's all great. You know, it's all just great. But there was a lot of bad stuff that went on. Did you hear Eric when he said what happened to him, for goodness sakes? That he had like 200 bank accounts shut off. You know, it sounds like they were trying to shut off the business as well. He got a call in the middle of the night from Capital One. For goodness sakes, this is bad. I told you I got a lot of calls from my bank, but I didn't have anybody actually shut off my account. But this is what they were doing. I mean, Eric seems to be the most egregious case of this, but it happened to other friends of mine. And I'll just tell you this, under the Biden administration, they were out for blood, right? Regulators were pressuring banks to close accounts on people that they didn't like. So Eric Trump, well, he was definitely somebody they didn't like. So he said they were after him for hundreds of accounts. This was debanking. I mean, it's bizarre. It should be illegal. And we need some kind of framework to ensure that no one actually is running the risk of being debanked going forward. Thankfully, you get President Trump, who's, by the way, experienced this firsthand with his kids. So he knows what this is, and he's taking decisive action to try and stop it. He's got an executive order, of course, but we need more than that. And this is why we're calling on Congress. Americans for Free Markets is partnering with me, Trish Regan. We are calling on Congress to do a little something more, okay? Because we need regulation that's going to prevent this going forward. We need to establish a national fair access standard for every single American to prevent services from being denied based on political or social or religious views. I mean, heck, they were going after you if you were at Dick's Sporting Goods. If you shopped at Dick's Sporting Goods, those last winter's boots, you know, maybe that's why I was in trouble. They literally were profiling people based on this. It's wrong, and banks cannot do that, and we need some kind of Chinese wall, pun intended. This will bring clarity, consistency, overdue accountability to financial regulation. We deserve it. We need it. We need to protect the financial freedom of every single American. Thank you very much. We are calling on Congress to act on this, to build on President Trump's leadership, and to make sure that they update these outdated laws so that, guess what, Bank of America and others cannot actually get in there and cut you off. So go check them out at forfreemarkets.com today. Sign up, be part of this with me. It is critical stuff. Meanwhile, update on the shutdown. Donald Trump saying, hey, you know, like it or not, this is what we're doing. Sorry, guys, you just handed us a blank slate. We got to cut money somewhere. This is how it works. This is how the cookie crumbles. You can thank Chuck Schumer.
Democrats. And as far as the shutdown is concerned, this is a Democrat Schumer shutdown. And he's trying to do it to get relevance back into the party because he's a loser. I've known him all his life. He's always been sort of a loser, but an intelligent one. But I think he's losing IQ points with time. I think that happens. I hope it hasn't happened with me. I know if it did, you guys will.
Loser. By the way, John Fetterman out of Pennsylvania, who's getting increasingly I don't know, is he going to join MAGA? Is he going to become one with the Republican Party? He's not too impressed with the Democrats and this shutdown. Here he is appearing on News Nation. I want you to hear it.
That's why shutting the government is really what the Democratic Party wants to do. And I follow country, then party. And it's the wrong thing for the country in a period of chaos. I refuse to vote to shut our government down. I absolutely would love to have. I would love to have a conversation about extending the tax credits for health care. Absolutely. But I would remind everybody, too, this was designed by the Democratic Party to expire at the end of the year. This is not something taken by the Republicans. They were designed to expire. Now let's have a conversation to extend it and not shut our government down.
Right. Okay. That was the deal. It was never supposed to be anything other than a temporary fix that was put in after March 2020, actually by the libs, when Biden came in and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer got a hold of the budget, and they were somehow able to put trillions of dollars worth of spending through, including $1.5 trillion in healthcare spending, which wound up going to illegals. And Donald Trump is like, enough is enough. We're not going to do it anymore. I mean, and then there's a bunch of other stuff like money for PBS, public TV, and all kinds of things. I'm sorry, but those days are gone. Those days are over. You guys are actually shutting down the government with thousands of people being laid off as a result of this. I don't get it. I mean, but you are that dumb, apparently.
And they would send $500 million to liberal news outlets by refunding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It would also restore up to $5 billion of American taxpayer funds for wasteful spending for international projects. Here's a couple of examples. This is in their legislation, their counterproposal on the CR to keep the lights open. This is what they want to do. They want to spend $24.6 million of your hard-earned dollars as a taxpayer for climate resilience in Honduras. They want to spend $13.4 million for civic engagement in Zimbabwe. They want to send $3.9 million for LGBTQI plus democracy grants in the Western Balkans. They want to spend $2.9 million of your dollars for desert locust risk reduction in the Horn of Africa.
Okay, it's not happening. All right, guys, it's just not happening. You're not going to get anywhere with this. I think the line has been drawn, right? The line in the sand has been drawn. We're not going to allow for it. And because we're not going to allow for it and the people don't want it, you're now trying to paint Donald Trump as, wait for it, the election stealer. Oh, you knew that was coming, right? Eventually. Yeah, they're all out there saying it in concert. It started out of Chicago. Actually, maybe it started on The View. Well, it's all now happening. They're like ricocheting this, he's stealing the election thing. I'm like, wow. I mean, you guys, like, you have no shame at all. Here's that Governor Pritzker out in Illinois today. Governor Pritzker, who, by the way, has police officers that are actually illegal migrants. Oh yeah, that was a big headline that came out today. Let me see if I have that one for you. Oh yeah, before we go to Pritzker, just consider who he's employing there. These are the police officers, or at least one of them, in Illinois. The story coming from Fox.
Let's do breaking news now. Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement has just revealed in the last short time a police officer working in Illinois is an illegal immigrant. Radule Bajovic works for the Hanover Police Department. He graduated from the academy in August, but he has been living in the U.S. illegally for a decade after his tourist visa expired in 2015. His illegal status was discovered as part of Operation Midway. So we wanted to bring you the very latest on that.
Okay, good to know. And by the way, better Harris than me trying to say that last name. So, okay, that's not good. Let's go back to Governor Pritzker, who's got his talking point about stealing the election. Oh, this National Guard going into Chicago. I'm sorry, he just wants to help you because, you know, Chicago's kind of a mess. And he wants to clean it up. They had Operation Summer Heat, and look at what happened in D.C. They got good results. The mayor went along with it. Everybody's happy. They're cleaning it up. It's becoming a safer place. Isn't that what you want? Memphis is thrilled, by the way. People out of Memphis are like, wow, this is amazing. Like our kids, they can actually play outside. They can actually walk to the store. This is a whole different thing. But Governor Pritzker, no, in Illinois, he doesn't want any part of this. No help from Donald Trump. He sees that as somehow the equivalent of stealing elections. Yeah. We didn't say he was smart, nor pretty.
Trump is looking to cause mayhem and lay the foundation for actions far more craven. We cannot accept any of this as normal, and we cannot remain silent. We must continue to call this what it is, a dangerous power grab that echoes the rise of authoritarianism and authoritarian regimes throughout world history.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We're getting a little sick of it. Okay. Just saying, like you guys tried that. You went really hard on it. You gathered phone records, 30 million phone records, trying to map out MAGA, hoping you could shut off half the country. And guess what? It didn't work. So I see you're going back to the well with the talking points.
This is in order to make the case, because in their minds, in all of their minds, they now believe they have carte blanche to do whatever they want to.
That's right, yes.
That's what the feeling is.
And if they stop us from voting, that's the one thing people have.
Well, I mean, it's the one thing that makes us very different from lots of other countries. Our votes, they do count. I do know that they count.
If we're allowed to vote.
Well, I think people will figure out how to vote because one thing I believe I know about Americans is they don't want to be told what to do. Yeah. They don't want that.
Cue the applause. That's the person that holds up the applause card.
You know, they don't want it. You can suggest some stuff, but they don't want you saying you got to go over here and do this. They don't want that. They don't want a dictatorship. And I think people want, okay, I hear you.
This is the dictatorship right
This
here.
is the dictatorship right here.
The dictatorship is telling you.
Well, I'll tell you
They're
something.
telling her, hey, Whoopi, you're on fragile ground right there. Knock it off, because you are once again jumping the shark, going places that you really shouldn't go. But again, she's getting her talking points courtesy of J.B. Pritzker out there in good old Illinois, where they don't want to take any of the president's help.
On the streets, even before the National Guard has made it to the streets of Illinois, you've got the Border Patrol. I was in Cicero yesterday, a 90% Latino population, and I watched as they not only pick people off the streets, but family members would come up to me and ask me where their family members were. I watched you with Rachel the other night here on MSNBC, and you were talking about how CBP has basically used the justification of the 100-mile border rule to allow the deployment here, and they're saying the border of Lake Michigan, the coast of Lake Michigan is the border. Lake Michigan, many people reach out to me and said, Lake Michigan doesn't even touch Canada. Are you thinking about suing to stop the deployment of the Border Patrol here as well?
Look, I think it's important to recognize that the Trump administration doesn't seem to respect any laws in the United States. They just do what they want to do, and they'll keep doing it unless someone stops them. Here in Illinois, we're stopping it. We're doing everything that we can to push back. And yeah, they've got armed, we're talking about automatic weapons and camouflaged, and they're not soldiers, right? These are ICE and Customs and Border Patrol agents that are roaming the streets of Chicago, in downtown Chicago. Why? It's a show. It's a show of force. And why does Donald Trump want to do that? And I've said this before, and I think it's important for people to hear it. He wants to militarize major cities across the United States, especially blue cities in blue states, because he wants us to get used to the idea of military on the streets, military troops, because there are 2026 elections. I believe that he's going to post people outside of ballot boxes and polling places, and if he needs to, in order to control those elections, he'll assume control of the ballot boxes and count the votes himself. He promised to do that. He threatened to do that back in 2020. Didn't get the chance to do it. I believe he would do it in 2026.
Do you believe we'll have free and fair elections in the United States of America?
And his answer is no. We're not going to have free, fair. I mean, you see, they've really opened Pandora's box, haven't they? I mean, they've just really gotten crazy, 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 crazy town. And it's important to understand, as annoying as it is, and I know it gets my Irish up, and if any of you are Irish, or you can feel Irish, right? You know, it gets one's temper kind of flaring because it's so blatant what they're trying to do. But we see through it, and we'll keep seeing through it, and we're not going to stand for it. You know what? America is back. America's back in a big way. And I'm thrilled for America. I'm thrilled for all of you. I'm thrilled for our country. I'm thrilled for our children. And I know that good things are coming ahead. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you go check out my Spotify channel. We're going to put the video up there, right there. Please subscribe. We've got a teeny little channel over there, but I know, because I've seen what we've built here on YouTube. We can grow that big and strong and mighty too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all you do. Don Beck, a nice job getting those likes, upwards of 4,000 on today's show. What a show. Thank you again to Eric Trump. You got to go check out his book. We are back live tomorrow on the Trish Regan Show, where we together are on the front lines of history, telling the truth. Can't say that about everyone these days now, can you? I'll see you tomorrow.